Okay.
so that
All
she's
right. So welcome, everybody. Oh, I feel like we have a lot on the agenda. I left out one thing that we just were made aware of. I kind of want to lead with that, but I'm not going to do it yet, Hazel, the lawyer, but oh man, I'm irate about it. But okay, let's go in order. I could not print my agenda. So I've got to just pull it up. So I'm not going to be looking at you guys.
that's okay. I'm trying to print it now, and I was shooed from my space.
Actually, when I say I couldn't print it, it's actually my husband's. I needed my husband to print it for me, but he's been on a conference call until like now. So, because my computer isn't hooked up to the printer. So,
you all want me to share my screen with it?
No, I got it.
No, I don't. I think it's okay. I'm just going to go back and forth. So Sergey's not here, so we're not going to do an update on the membership. Oh, first, let's say, are we okay with if we're having an event next week on the 26th? And I feel like the events are sort of happening the last week of the months. Stephanie, I actually talked about this a little bit back and forth about how this is a lot for those couple of weeks to have 4 hours in 2 weeks devoted to this, because there's preparation for it on the programmer's end, my end, and it just feels like a lot. So I'm kind of hoping that we can keep the board meetings in the middle of the month. I mean, I know it's not always going to work, but does May 17th work for you guys?
Yeah, it's fine for me.
Okay.
Works for me.
Great. Okay.
At the same time?
At 6:30, not 7:30. The reason we had Eastern, yeah. The reason we had to do 7:30 tonight is because I looked at the Zoom account and somebody had a meeting booked until 7, so I changed it to 7:30. Is that?
This time works better for me, but I will say that I'll be traveling on the 17th of May. But
oh, you will?
I'm not on the board. You guys have your meeting, and I'll.
Well, what are you doing traveling all the time? What's going on, Hazel?
Who's speaking there?
That's what retirement is about, right? Traveling. So, okay. All right. So the programming, I feel like we've got a lot to talk about with programming. Stephanie's not here, so I'm just going to kind of take over this part. So the next event is April 26th. Hazel and Ruth are hosting that. I think we all know that, but the business of freelancing, they met yesterday to, finalize what they're presenting. I'm excited to see it. So there's a 2-hour blocked reserve. I don't know if you guys are going to use the full 2 hour. I just wanted to make sure like someone didn't kick us off at 8:15 or 8:30 if we were still talking. So I just 7 to 9 I thought was plenty. I'm going to be frequently monitoring that to make sure that there is I'll be monitoring up until the day of and right before the meeting to make sure there's no conflict at all.
Thank you.
Because it's way too disruptive and we have 22 people who have signed up for this.
Oh, that's great. And we still have all right.
I was like, wow, there's a ton of people in here. So I'm super excited about that. And that will be awful if 22 people get kicked off. So I am just going to stay on that, like just as tight as I can. For the hosting of that meeting, Hazel, do you want to start the Zoom session from the Zoom leader group so that you can be the host? Or do you want Solomon to do it so he can let people in and that sort of thing?
I think having Solomon do it would be good. Ruth and I had talked about logging on a half an hour early so that we have a little bit of time to.
So I think, Hillary, correct me if I'm wrong, then I think one of you has to start the meeting.
I think it depends on how I can't remember for sure, but I think it depends on how like the settings are set up in the meeting.
It's set up as a webinar, and I checked the box for a practice session.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I'm kind of figuring that half hour would be our practice session, and then the session itself would start at maybe Solomon, if you can start letting people in like maybe 2 or 3 minutes before 7.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I copied the invitation from the meeting, not as a webinar, and sent that to all of those people.
It's not the same link?
I don't know. Hillary, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would need to go into, or somebody would need to go into Zoom to compare the links.
Because it's just a hold for. Can it just run as can we run it as a meeting, Hazel? Or do you prefer it to be webinar? Why do you want it to be a webinar?
Well, I think that it's a more formal presentation. I don't know, Ruth, speak up here. What's your thought?
I don't really know the difference between the two.
Okay, with the webinar, we can have a Q&A function. And people can ask their questions there, and that way things won't get lost in the chat. And that is
that's
my
important.
reason.
Also, a big difference is that in a meeting, the way that we are in a meeting right now, and we see like the Brady Bunch squares of everybody's spaces, that does not happen in a webinar.
We would just see Ruth and Hazel, and if it was supposed 5 people, it wouldn't matter, but with 22 plus all of us, or whoever's coming with us, that's going to be, we're not going to even see Ruth and Hazel. I mean, you can blow them up, but it's going to be a lot of people. So talk amongst yourself for a minute. I'm going to go to that Zoom account and I am going to check to see if there are differences between the links.
Yeah, so I think the big differences are the visual display, in terms of like only the presenters being shown. Also, only the presenters being shown versus all of the attendees of a meeting being shown.
We don't
And
need.
also, as Hazel was saying, the chat, I think that in a webinar, you can only chat with, like, you can, if I'm remembering correctly, you can only chat either with the presenters and host or with everyone.
Right.
So you can't chat with, you can't do like a little side chat with an individual attendee.
Right.
You don't
Right.
like see a list of all the attendees, and have a
Yeah.
little side conversation going. So that's a difference too. I feel like there was a third I was just thinking of, but now I can't
It's
remember.
mostly just presentation differences. You'll see the larger screen instead of seeing everybody else. Most of the communication is going to be controlled by the host and the people that are speaking. And then you have control over everyone's mics, which you still do.
Yeah.
And most of those times it's probably going to be easier for you to get a chat question and then read the chat question than going through the controls and trying to turn people on and off. Because I think they come in automatically muted, and they're like the only people that can really make any sounds or speak or be seen are the presenters. It's set up to be that way.
Well,
Yeah, and then plus there are the extra features like the Q&A
right,
feature. Mhm.
which
We were
I-
planning
In a
to-
webinar versus in a meeting.
We were planning to tell people to please put your questions in the Q&A rather than the chat.
right.
I mean, the other big difference is to let you do branding too.
It lets you do
Branding.
branding.
So you can put like brand stuff up.
Ah, okay.
Like you can make the background automatically an SPJ background.
Ah,
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, Chris. Thanks.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I have one concern and a suggestion. My major concern is that the wording on some of the promo pieces is a little bit more expansive than I think we can even dream about doing in 1 hour. And I'm hoping that we won't have raised people's expectations beyond what we can deliver. So the suggestion I have is that in the future, it might be a good idea to run the promo by the people who are doing the presentations.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna add that to like, because I think we do have to do some tweaks to how the programming is happening since we're doing we're doing so many programming events right now.
Right.
So
Someone go out on the Facebook.
whoever is presenting should be working with Stephanie to come up with the language.
Yeah.
You talking about the
Or
language
just
in
send her the language and she can create it, you know, maybe that's the way to do it. If you're the host, you set up the language, which I wouldn't think would be a.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I mean, I thought we were going to position it as the business of freelancing. And I was a little surprised to see that the major message seems to be what's your work worth, which is not really exactly what we were going to talk about, but we can work around it.
Yeah, so and that's just, and Stephanie wouldn't have known, you know, she just came up with what she thought would work from our discussion. So that's definitely a good thing going forward. Because if I say, oh, there's an editor freelancer meet and greet, but I don't go through exactly what I'm doing, she might come up with a completely different. So it's just a lack of communication on
Yeah,
our part.
either the presenter should let her know what they want used, or she should check with anybody who's in charge of programming should check with the presenters before throwing things out there.
Okay.
Either way, they
I'm gonna
both
put
work.
that down. Maybe I'll come up with a little guidelines thing for programming. Because I got a lot, we've got a lot on here about this. I also, you guys might all have a different opinion on this and you can shut me down. But I sort of think that we should have we should keep the graphic the same or similar, like branding, like Chris was just talking about, a brand. The freelance community is having an event. You know, when you see this graphic or whatever, the freelance community is having an event. Obviously, the words, the dates, everything's going to change each time we put out an event. But I think to not recreate, but to create new graphics or a whole new thing each time. First of all, it's a lot more work that we don't need. And I think it works against us. I think when people are looking on Facebook and you see the same, oh, there's an event, they'll get used to that eventually. Oh, there's an event this month. What is this one about? And if you guys are okay with that, I think if we have Stephanie work on one that we like, she can show it to us. Get one that she is a graphic designer, so she's perfect for this. So she can do it, use her talents to come up with something cool. And then all she has to do is plug in new words, date, everything. And that's the work is done. The graphic design is done once and that's it.
Yep,
Definitely.
Okay. And that,
Obviously, she did a great job if we've got 22 people signed up now.
which brings me to my next thing that we had talked about. I didn't put this on the agenda, but I don't know if you remember last month, we talked a little bit about Solomon's idea about could we send the Zoom link for these events out to our list, like MailChimp, like our list of freelancers. And we were like, we didn't know because we didn't have a lot of people at the last event, the social hour, but that is obviously not on people's, hey, I can't wait to do that. I think it was more so during COVID. And I think now they're just like, oh, I'm going to go to a real happy hour, right? Like they're just not going to do that. So I think this really shows the fact that 22 people have expressed interest, and they won't all come, but there might be a few more that show up. But I think that there's 22 people who have expressed interest in this, and we only had, I don't know, less than 5, maybe roughly, come to the social hour. I just think that's not maybe worth the effort to do one every other month, the social hour.
I think I disagree. I think it's worth trying to do at least one more and see what happens, because the one this last time got very little promotion, and so did our Meet the Board event. So I think the big difference is 2 things, but the first one is this one's getting more publicity. The second one is the topic, because anybody who either already is freelancing or thinking about it wants to know about the business aspects. So, but I think the social one is worth doing instead of maybe every other month. Maybe we do it once a quarter And if we promote it enough, we should get more people to attend.
And I'm willing to try it once a quarter. But I think we should skip May. I think that right now, I had a conversation with Stephanie about this, and like, she and I both have the same feeling that it's a lot to be, which I've already mentioned, like we have the 2-hour board meeting, then a 2-hour event, and then prepping for it. And, you know, she has more prep time than, let's say, Susan does for the event. And I have more prep time than, let's say, Hazel does for an event, right? But I think for us to be doing all of that, plus our jobs, plus our kids, I think both of us are a little bit overwhelmed doing a thing every month. If you guys want to, I think we can still do that. It's just that on some of the social events, I think that I'm going to check out on some of those. I won't be at every one of them. And same with Stephanie.
Let me also suggest that rather than call it a social event, call it a networking event, because that's more professional and people are more.
Yeah, I like that. That's
Yeah.
a better way to, yeah.
That's a good idea.
Well, I was gonna say, instead of just calling it a social event, tie it into something like, you know, this month is really interesting for me, the business of freelancing. You know, last month I was sick, so I decided to skip the social.
Well, so Chris, what we're doing is every other month, we're having a more formal thing like what we're doing next week with Hazel and Ruth, of more of a presentation, more of a, here's all the stuff you're going to take away. And then to kind of keep the momentum going and keep everybody, have an event once a month, which might be too lofty of a goal, I guess is what I'm saying, to have 12 events in the year, in addition to all the other stuff that we're doing within the community. And then every other month, because they don't take as much time, they do take as much time for the 2-hour block we're there, but they don't take as much time to sort of set up, you know, like Hazel and Ruth had to meet yesterday. Like if we could do an editor meet and greet, I'm going to have to get all those editors together. The social hours don't take that kind of work. And it really is just, come on, show up, let's just talk. There's no agenda. So that's what we were thinking of doing every other month. The one we had last month, we didn't have a great turnout for.
Yeah, but I agree with the whole calling it a networking event instead of
Yeah,
calling it
yeah,
social.
I agree. I like that.
So if we skip May, when would we do our next program? And our next program would probably be a networking event, because this month is a business related event.
I would still do the,
So our next event would be another kind of business oriented topic.
I think so. I think what I would say is like, and you may all disagree, but I think that we should have fewer of the just networking events. I think we were talking about having 5 or 6 of those, and I think maybe 3 of those or 4 of those would be better.
If we do them quarterly, that would be 4.
Right.
In a whole
So
year.
I was thinking in June, so I have it on here, June, like the next programming event would roughly fall June 28th. And we can talk about what we want that one to be. But probably an event. I don't think I would do an event in April, skip anything in May, and then make the next one just the networking event. I think I would skip May and then make the next one a big, you know, one of our big events. Then otherwise we've got 3 months before we really plan anything, you know, that is more than a networking event.
Well, for what it's worth, I can't do the 28th in June, but
We don't have to do Wednesdays. So let's try to figure out a date that would work. Does the 27th work for people?
Not for me.
Okay, what about that week before, the 21st?
Well, I'm not going to be one of the speakers, so it doesn't really. Most of June, I'll be traveling and going to events and speaking at conferences, so
Okay.
it's going to
Okay.
be crazy. But since I'm not going to be the speaker next time.
Or in June, right? So if okay. I know that I can't do the 21st. That's Nola's graduation on the 21st. Does the 28th work for the rest of you or most of you?
Yes.
So far, I know things come up, so
So we
Mhm.
can
And I
talk-
think I think it also depends on what it is, right? What we're doing, and who's gonna host it and that sort of thing. I want to say that I would be up for doing an editor meet and greet
Wait, are you talking about May or June?
June 28th.
Yeah, no, I might be on an airplane coming back from Europe.
I'll be on an airplane coming back from DC.
Wow, you guys, everybody's vacationing.
Actually,
not-
it's work related.
I just got back from London.
I'm not vacationing, I'm working.
Oh, why is there so much work in June? If we want to wait, we don't have to decide on that date right now. I do think we should decide the topic. Does anybody have any ideas? Solomon, you're the one who has that list. Do you have the Trello board there that you can kind of talk to us about what's on there?
1 second. Okay.
I'm so sorry for eating, but I have to, with type 1 diabetes, I got to do it the right time.
Okay. So let's see.
We had talked about, while Solomon's pulling that up, we talked about doing a virtual meet and greet. Yeah, virtual editor freelancer meet and greet. That really, I want to do it. It just intimidates me a little bit. I think it's going to be very easy to get some editors there because it's virtual and, fine. But I don't actually have a great idea on how to run that online.
I think if we decide on the topic tonight, we can worry about how to make it work at another time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, but
It's-
so I'm not sure I don't know about that. I don't know about the editor. It takes a lot just to put the one on each year. I do think we should try it, but
I have a suggestion.
yeah,
If Solomon can pull up what we had in the past as far as potential future topics and put that in an email and have us all rank the ones we think are the most useful or the most important, and then we can see which ones get the most votes, and that can be what we do in June.
Solomon, can you share your screen right now?
Yes.
If he shares it right now, we can just kind of say it rather than waiting for emails and that sort of thing.
Okay, so we didn't have that many left. Let me, share this.
Or you
These
could
are
just read them.
No, I'll share the screen. Because we had 2 pages here. And I think that some of them might have gotten deleted here. So let me share this screen here.
How about photo basics for writers? I know who would do that.
That was one of them. So can everybody see that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, so we had tax season's over.
yeah, we're gonna do that at the end of the year. I think we talked about.
yeah, I think we ought to aim for that in November.
Yeah,
Volunteer fair is done.
we already did. Yeah, we did that one.
Okay. Editor meet and greet is the main one we're talking about now.
Mhm,
We're not doing open meeting.
right.
Imposter syndrome, I think we're not going to do that, right?
I think, yeah, I don't think we should do that. I think because we're hoping that it'll get approved for the in-person conference.
Right.
And then we can see what the turnout is and how popular it is. And then that could be one that we do, in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, so then self-accountability, how to self-motivate for the coming year. That's an end of the year thing, but we can change that title to just self-accountability, how to motivate yourself as a freelancer.
Mhm.
So that's a possibility that could include stuff like organization.
We could
things
even
like-
tie that into the summer doldrums of, motivating yourself when everybody's out of town and the weather is hot and nasty and all you want to do is stay in the air conditioning or in the pool.
Right.
Yeah, I
then
feel
we-
like that's a good one for mid-year,
Yeah, then we had a multimedia session. So that's a session about how to get started and then that can be that can have a subhead because you can recycle that. Like one year you do, like you were saying, how to just do the basics in photography because that's kind of something everybody needs to know how to do now. And then another year you can talk about how to do the basics in video, audio, maybe writing for television, right? So you just do one thing. And we have like 2 experts come and talk about that. Does that make any sense?
I
Yeah.
like that one.
I like that.
Yeah. And then
Actually, you know something, Solomon, if we do something with learning the basics of multimedia with a focus primarily on photography, June is a really good time to do that because for those who do get summer vacations, that's when people are going to be thinking about getting decent images for not only business stuff, but personal stuff.
So this is, I'm gonna give my 2 cents worth on that one.
Please.
I think this is a good chance to talk about how, I mean, I started out as a photojournalist and I got a master's degree in multimedia journalism of how like the skills you learn as a photojournalist translate into a video.
Yeah.
I mean, because all the things I learned about the rule of thirds, about lighting and everything and with still photography translated into video.
I think we have our 2 speakers.
I was just gonna say, Chris, are you gonna be the host and speaker for this one?
I can be.
Yay.
Solomon and
So-
Chris.
Okay, so multimedia then? That
Yeah.
sounds like the one that everybody seems to be most excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, until I had to start doing audio and video for my master's degree, I didn't realize how much I learned in photography translated over.
Right.
And
So
I've got a client now who not only wants me to take photos, but gave me a camera for doing that. And the camera can do video. So she expects me to figure out how to learn to do that between now and the end of the year so we can video some of the events that I cover for her.
What
the
kind?
other- the other thing I would suggest is, which is not on here, social media. Like a lot of places hire people to do social media stories.
Yeah.
And we keep running into people that don't know how to do social media. And I don't mean like know how to get 1,000 followers. I mean like how to make a post or how to make a cogent story on social media or how
No,
to.
definitely, because that, I think that's a skill. I mean, granted, I'm like 55, but I mean, that's a skill that you need really nowadays, being able to know how to do an Instagram post and make
Right.
that Instagram post work on Facebook. I would
Or
say
being
Twitter, but Twitter's kind of blowing itself up right now.
Yeah, but even just the basics of like how to pair a photo with a story is something that translates across all of the social media that a lot of people are not familiar with.
And
So-
again, people are being hired to write posts for their clients, not so much for ourselves. So that would be the angle for a social media session.
Yes, I mean, like the LA Times just had a whole thing where they were trying to get a bunch of people to do social media stuff. And they don't care if you know how to use TikTok or whatever. They want to know if you understand how the medium works so that you can put it together in a way that's logical, right? Because the way we post is not necessarily the way we would write a story. So that's something that someone can talk about.
Yeah, and especially if you understand how SEO works, because like the keywords and all that stuff is driving searches.
So this session that we want to do in June, what would I feel like it's more than, photos for a story, just from listening to you talk about this.
Well, I would keep it to one of the sections because that's too much time. Because remember, we're going to be talking to people
Okay.
who have a wide range of camera abilities, and some people
May
will have
I-
actual cameras, and some
May I
people will not.
suggest that Solomon and Chris communicate between the 2 of them on how they think that should work? And then get in touch with Stephanie for her help in promoting it. And we go from there.
Okay.
And I do think, Solomon and Chris, if you have, I think, good takeaway information would be
Your camera, not you,
budget
Ken.
version of a good camera. you know, if you have
Yeah, I
any
think
suggestions.
if Solomon and I can talk, that way we can kind of like level.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Kind of make sure we're on the same sheet of music, because
Great.
I know what I do with the DSLR,
Yeah,
you know, and what my daughter does with her little Sony.
I don't even know what that is, but okay.
What
Yeah.
Sony? Because
We'll
I have
save
an
it for the
A7 IV.
session.
Yeah.
So we'll put it in for June 28th.
I would've-
I'm
yeah.
gonna try to get that time. I'm gonna book that now, so we have it. If Solomon or Chris, you can't do that, if you know ahead of time, we can change, but we shouldn't change it after we start promoting it, obviously. And I think we should start promoting it June 1st, right? We don't want to do it too early because people will forget about it 2 months later. But don't you think, do you think June 1st is the right time before to promote?
At least,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine.
Okay,
No later than that, certainly. And we could even do, once Chris and Solomon decide on a title, we can put the title and the date in things like our newsletter, just as a save the date, without having to do a lot of detail. And then from June 1st, we do more of the,
right, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it could go into the newsletter. It could, you know, like there could be a placeholder Facebook event and an event on the SPJ calendar too.
perfect, okay.
so
Um,
let's let them craft the session.
Okay, that sounds great. And then the other thing, and we'll touch on this next month with Stephanie, but I just want to touch on that we know it's out there. The announcing the events, the frequency at which we should do that, the promotion, who should be doing it, when should it be done? I think if we have maybe a better structure around that, so we all know what's happening, I think that would be good. So, but we want Stephanie here to weigh in on that and talk about that, but I'm just gonna star that, make sure it's on next month's meeting. Which is kind of good that we don't have a meeting for next month, because we don't have it the end of May anyway.
Okay.
All right, so let's move.
You need to share my
on.
screen, right? So I'm gonna turn my screen off here.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to Ruth, if you have an update.
Yeah, Hazel and I had a very good session together yesterday. We planned out what we want to talk about. I'm going to get my notes back to her by Friday, and we just need to make a decision between the two of us of what would be a handout and when we want to make that available to people. But we know what we want to talk about, and we're going to include a bunch of resources,
Okay,
and I think it'll be a very good program.
great.
And I'm going to, if it's all right with Hazel and you, I'm going to ask Stephanie if she does any further promotions to ditch the "what's your work worth" headline and just use "business of freelancing" instead.
Okay, do you want me to send that email, or do you want to send it?
Hazel, what do you think? I think it should come from you or me. I think you're on mute.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know, Stacy. Do you feel like it's a management kind of thing that you should be taking care of, or is it something that we should just?
I love Stephanie. I think she's great, but I don't want her to think that we're hey, you're not doing this right. And we're not saying that at all. I know you're not saying that at all.
No.
But
I
I just want to
just
make sure that we're totally knowing how appreciative we are of everything she's doing. And that is, it's a very small thing to change the wording on that, or to
I would just say something, if I do this, I would just say something like, would you mind deleting that text and just using the "business of freelancing" heading?
Yeah, I mean, it's your program, you know what it's about, you've got it. So I think that's fine.
Okay,
Okay, I'll do that in the morning. Because she's not gonna see it tonight anyhow.
Okay. And then Ruth, do you have an update on the On Your Own guide?
I've done a little more on it and I'll try to do, I apologize to everybody. I have just been so swamped those last couple months that it's a miracle I get all my work done. And I'm not complaining. It's good to have a lot of work. But that is high on my priority list, and I do want to have it done well before the convention so we can make it part of our convention presence.
Okay.
And the only other thing, Hazel, I can't remember the name of the resource that we were looking at, and I haven't heard from them, so I don't know if we still have an account, because we had a trial. And it's not manual.com, but I'm blanking on what it is and I can't find any of our messages.
MANULA.
Okay, I was adding an extra A. Okay. I will look into that in the morning.
We don't still have an account. I didn't ever pay for it.
Okay,
So, and I'm glad I didn't, because it would have sat there unused all this time. So my suggestion is get a nice, healthy group of chapters,
and then go to them.
and then we'll figure out. There was a question about how to tap money from the Freelance Fund for Technology, was written into the proposal for the Freelance Fund. And so we should be able to do it, but things have been a mess in headquarters, in case anybody didn't know.
I mean, we don't know the details, and I know we don't really have time to talk about it, but we don't. So
Yeah,
I think that you might be one of the only ones in this little soiree that knows. So,
Right, that makes sense though, that I go back and do content and have a batch of material and we don't either go back to that resource or use some other resource
yeah,
so it doesn't get wasted.
yeah.
and I think, again, just to reiterate with the On Your Own guide, we want to, I mean, obviously update it where it needs to be updated, but we also want to add what's going on in freelancing now, what's going on in journalism now. I think AI should be in there, the chat GPT. I think there's a lot of things that we just have to touch on and put in there, just kind of modernize it.
Okay.
So I am going to throw another little topic in here before we start talking about the Freelance Fund, because Hazel just sent me this email at 3:30 today or something, about Jennifer Royer was contacted by a lawyer in DC who is representing a freelance journalist who is saying that he or she is being misclassified as a freelancer. And the lawyer wants to talk to somebody about what is a freelancer, what does that mean, and what should be expected if you're a freelance journalist, what are the expectations if you're a freelancer? This person is not given any benefits. There's no health insurance, there's no anything, no days off, no paid time off. It is a full-time freelance job. They have no benefits and they are not allowed to work for anybody else. They are called freelance by the company simply to not have to deal with the benefits. As I go through these jobs each week, I have been seeing, I think I mentioned it to one of you on an email. I was like, why am I seeing more of these full-time freelance jobs? It is a trend that is happening. It's good for you all to know this in case someone comes at us as board members. It is happening more and more. It is really, really disturbing. They put that word to it and they think that will protect them from having to pay, and people will sign on, and there'll be a 25-year-old who doesn't know, who isn't as seasoned, who signs on to that and gets totally screwed. It doesn't have,
So-
they don't have they're just a employee with no benefits.
It's
This
an
has
it's
been-
employment misclassification. It's horseshit. And I'm pretty sure that every state already has laws that protect workers against that. It's also the rampant misclassification is one of the reasons that, sorry, I'm trying to remember that this meeting is recorded. Rampant misclassification is also, I think, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that laws like AB5 and the PRO Act, are getting traction.
But there are
So-
already laws in place to fight this, which is
Exactly.
why that attorney is involved.
Right.
And also two things quickly, that kind of contract has been common in tech writing and editing for decades.
Yeah.
Always a problem. They've also usually in that context been on site as well as full-time with no benefits. So it isn't new, it's just newly being applied to some of the people in our end of the communications spectrum. And the other thing is, what do these people want and who should respond?
Right.
What does the
So
lawyer
that's what
want?
so they want to talk to someone, a freelancer, and we had talked about, Hazel had talked about who, said this request should go to Stacy, and then she and I we talked about who should go. I almost think that it should be, because you had mentioned Susan too, Hazel, in the email, me and you and Susan on a conference call with the lawyer. This will set a precedent. The lawyer said it himself, and we need to make sure it's the right precedent that's set, that the employer doesn't win, right? So I feel like it's more than just a one-person meeting with the lawyer. I don't know how you feel about that, Hazel and Susan, if you're up for doing that. I think Susan, because you just have so much information on what you're doing.
Yeah, but I am coming into heavy deadlines and I'm not going to have time till probably mid or late May.
Okay.
I
We
think
can,
need to jump on it before then. I don't think
Okay.
we.
I have a question.
I don't think, because this is not an AB, I mean, it's related to AB5, but this really isn't an AB5 issue.
okay.
This is employment misclassification using laws that are already in place.
Yeah.
Right.
I had this happen to me, and I negotiated myself right out of it and said, I'm going to work for you for 3 weeks full time, and then I'm going to take 2 weeks and 2 weeks off. I'll have every 3 weeks, I'm going to take 2 weeks so I can work for other people and keep my clients that way. And they agreed to it. It isn't always going to be that's a very short story of how long that negotiation took. But I have firsthand knowledge of this, and I was really like, I don't think this is legal what they're doing.
Well, I think we need a couple of details before anybody speaks for our community. One is this person an SPJ member? The second one, whether they're in the freelance community or not, are they SPJ member? The other is, how is the information going to be used? And do we all have our own personal definition of what's a freelancer? I think it's pretty clear cut that this particular situation is not real freelancing. If they're
Right.
forbidden from working for anybody else, that is a huge IRS level.
That's the biggest thing, I
Yeah.
feel like,
So
that's the biggest thing.
What we need to do, whoever talks to this attorney needs to refer to that as a starting point, because they've had, as we've always talked about when this comes up, the IRS has had 20 very specific items that define a contractor, independent contractor, which most of us consider ourselves to be. Freelancer equals independent contractor. So there are guidelines there. If this person doesn't want to be treated that way, they can start with that. Then they can go to whatever their state guidelines might be for misclassification. And then they can go to the Fight for Freelancers group, and that group might be at least as appropriate for the lawyer to talk to as we are.
Right. Go ahead. I knew you had something to say, Solomon. What are your thoughts?
Just a couple of questions. The
Yeah.
first thing I'd ask is, do we have a definition or anything close to a definition on our website or in any of our material?
And if we don't, we should.
Right, and then if we
Refer
do,
to, yeah, sorry.
if we do, we might want to make sure that it agrees with whatever you're on the basics with whatever you say to a lawyer. Because the first thing they're going to do is check the website and all the material. And I know we have a website that's kind of clunky and there's like some stuff on there that I haven't gotten through everything, so it might just be me. But I would try to check and make sure that we don't have some that we don't have that. If we do have a definition of what freelancing is on the website somewhere, we know what that says so that you don't get ambushed. And then
I bet we don't have the definition of what a freelancer
I don't
is.
think I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
right. So just to check, because there's a lot of material. I want to make sure that it's not hidden somewhere or something.
Well,
So-
knowing that this is a lawsuit that is being taken on right now, whether or not we even talk to this lawyer, let's get something on there, because if he says,
Yes.
well, the Society of Professional
Yes.
Journalists says this, we
Yeah.
want the person to win this fight.
Right, so that would be my next suggestion or question is, do we have some definition, no matter how nebulous, that fits our design at least somewhere posted so that it's clear? Because we do have a lot of people that don't know they can join this community because they don't know what freelancing is either. That's a question a lot of journalists ask. So, so that might be something that's beneficial to our members as well, to have some kind of definition, even if it's a soft one or broad, that's somewhere.
Let's I will work on that with someone who wants to do that. We can come up with a
I do.
definition.
I do.
Okay.
And then my other concern was that considering that we're going to be talking to a lawyer, even though we're a freelance community, do we need to have a lawyer present when we speak to them?
He's just asking, this guy it was a very kind of, it was a very informal email really coming from him, just saying, I can talk about the laws surrounding this, but I don't know about freelance. I'm totally new to this freelance journalism. And I just wanted to talk to somebody who is one. What's expected? I think asking what's expected. What do you expect as a freelancer? What's normal? We're all sitting here saying, yeah, that is completely off the charts, not normal. So that's not.
Okay. I'm just
Hey,
concerned.
Sullivan, to answer your question, I don't think you need a lawyer present for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
All right,
if you were being deposed, I would say yes, but this is just a lawyer asking questions to like, increase his knowledge.
And
Okay.
you might want to say at the beginning of the session, this is not a formal deposition, and we are providing background information that can't be quoted unless you check with us first, something like that.
Okay, that was my next question, is if it's going to be recorded or is there going to be a record of it? Somebody taking notes, because you might want to, have a copy of that for ourselves. And then like if, because I just concern whenever a lawyer gets involved, because they're always friendly until they get litigious. So, I mean, they're always very nice.
I'll guarantee he's gonna take notes and probably record it, because I would.
Yeah, so we should definitely have a copy of it.
We should have our own
But-
recording.
Recorded.
But that
just
is
for-
something I would clarify right up at front. I mean, just like you do with somebody you're interviewing is, hey, is this gonna be recorded?
Yeah, so that was my other concern, and I would record it regardless for your own safety. You don't, because you never know. I don't, trust nobody but your mother, and then cut the deck.
Right. That's true.
So-
That's true.
And then my last concern was that, as far as the definition, do we know what state this person is in?
I mean, it's a DC lawyer, but
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would think it would be someone local there, but I don't know.
Okay, just to be
Local
clear, 'cause you
here.
might want to look up.
2 states and DC, so.
Okay. Okay, those were the only concerns that I had at the
I
time.
have very good legal advice, so I can, and somebody who understands these issues as well. So is tired of hearing me talk about.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Hazel, let's you and I talk about that a little bit more after, and I don't know, tomorrow or something.
Okay.
And
And then you'll work with Ruth on coming up with some kind of.
yeah, and I think that should just happen, and I think that should just happen anyway. Ruth,
Yeah.
if you want to just,
I've already started.
perfect. If you want to do that, you could just do it and send it to all of us if we have anything to add to it, if you want to do, and you
That's
can,
what
we
I'm
can kind of
thinking. Yeah.
massage it. Yeah, having one person. Okay, let's do that, and we'll just get that up as soon as we can anyway. But I think we need to respond to this request pretty soon. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Or Stacy, let's text and we can talk about when.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Yes, I can text all day today, or all day during the day. Sorry. I just can't take phone.
Yeah, I know.
Kids in the classroom. Okay, so then our last item on the agenda, excuse me, is the freelance fund. And there's been, were we all involved in these emails? I'm not sure who was involved in the emails, but somebody wrote a letter to headquarters and asked for, trying to get you guys back on my screen and I can't. Are you still there? I feel like I closed you out.
Yeah.
Oh no, there you
Yeah,
are.
we're
Gosh.
here.
Okay, it looked like you'd all disappeared. Somebody wrote to headquarters a very eloquent letter that talked about her life as a freelancer and that she would love to be involved with this organization, and asked if there was any funding for memberships. And the good-hearted souls of Hazel and, was it Hillary, involved in this too? I can't remember, but we're like, yes, let's, not really like, oh yes, let's do it, but it was like, oh, I think we should do this. And I just have a different thought on that. So the idea is we've got a freelance fund that we're hopefully going to continue to get donations for, but we can't know when those donations are going to come in. So we got to be very clear about what we want to use the money for, I think, and have a very, very clear guidelines on that. For example, when one of our members was sort of going on hard times and we wondered, could we help him with this? We decided that's not what the freelance fund was for. And this is just another story of sort of hard times. I think that if you asked any freelancer, most freelancers, especially those who don't have, let's say, a significant other with a significant income, they will all say that they would love to have help with the membership. That's my concern. I really feel like maybe we should have.
I don't think the fund should be used for somebody to have their initial SPJ membership. I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay, what are other people's thoughts on it?
Say that again.
I don't
Something-
think the freelance fund should be used to help somebody join the SPJ initially.
Doesn't the SPJ have programs and things like that?
I
for
thought we
joining?
did.
They
I'm pretty
passed it
sure
on to us. This person wrote to national headquarters and the national headquarters forwarded it to us to see if we could help. So my guess is they don't do that. We do the fellowship program, which I love. We have to have money for that. The people who maybe come in and with that sort of question could be, hey, we have this fellowship program. We'd love for you to apply. That's where you apply, right? Then they get to go to the convention. And does that come with a year membership? Could we do that with a year membership?
I don't recall, so we might want to share both the fund and the fellowship guidelines by email in the next day or two. My recollection, and I could be wrong, my recollection is you had to be an SPJ member and you had to have had some freelance experience. And I think we asked that you had some involvement with the freelance community, but I don't recall.
No, just SPJ. The question
Okay.
was, how have you contributed to SPJ or to the freelance community and or SPJ in the past?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
not,
So it
I
had
just,
to be
I
at
feel like
least-
if we are really opening up how do we say yes to one person and not yes to 75 more people who come down the line? There could be people in this board meeting right now who could use a membership.
Yeah,
To
I mean,
SPJ.
I think we have all been at points where paying for SPJ membership, which compared to some of my other groups is very reasonable.
Mhm.
But before you start handing money out to people, for the majority of the association world that I have been very active in for decades, you don't hand money to people just to join. They have to join, they have to do something to participate, they have to kind of earn
Yeah.
a fellowship, a grant, or whatever, but you don't
Yeah.
hand out the memberships.
I'm with Ruth on this. I really am. I just feel like all the different things that I've joined, organizations that I've joined, whether I have lived in subsidized housing before. When I started out as a journalist on my own in Florida, because I made no money. And I never had a break on anything. Not to say that this person isn't very deserving of it, as I would have been way back then. But I just don't, my reason for saying that is because organizations just don't generally do that. And I think that our other ways of giving, the fellowship, the mini grants, are so helpful and so valuable for freelancers who do get in and want to, like Sergi is the perfect example of that, right? Got the fellowship, she's on our board, she's very active.
And Hanan also, the only
Yeah,
one. we
Hanan,
haven't seen
right,
anything
Hanan, yeah, I
from
was just thinking board members, but
Yep.
of course, yeah,
The
Hanan, like
only
it's
one
just,
we haven't seen anything from is Clayton.
Clayton does a lot for SPJ though.
Yeah.
So he's very active in SPJ. He's been great. So I don't know. I'll let other people talk. That my thoughts.
And
Yeah.
just really quickly, most of the organizations that I joined, they have a hardship thing
Yeah,
for students and professionals. So I think for them to kick it back to us is just them passing the ball to someone else because someone didn't bother to look. I'm sure there's some kind of hardship program that SPJ has somewhere because I'm looking at other programs and they all have them. The PPGLA has it, the LA Press Club have it, and they're not just for students, because a lot of their memberships are very low, and some of them actually ask for donations from other memberships. And if they don't, then we should suggest that SPJ
that we
have one,
established something.
not the
I'm
freelance.
pretty sure there is something. I just don't know how to find it.
Yeah, I
I've
was
heard
looking as
of-
well.
I've never heard of it, and I think that I think that the suggestion, and I'm not disagreeing with the suggestion, but I think that the prospect of suggesting that SPJ establish a hardship fund, if they don't already have one, and I don't think they do, I'm not positive, but I don't think they do. I think that like the prospect of getting like the entire national organization to establish a hardship fund is like, would
Not bloody likely.
probably like good luck seeing even a decision on that in 2 years.
Well, but again, if we don't have anything in place now, it is so common in other organizations that even with chaos at headquarters, it shouldn't be a big deal to establish something. It might be a bigger deal to have somebody to manage it. But again, I do not think that our fund is the appropriate place to pay for somebody to join the organization. Especially at the cost because it really is a very reasonable membership fee.
Well, and that's true too. The money is going to not. Yeah, I just, the money is going into SPJ. I don't know.
I kind of concur. I think this is a wider SPJ issue and not just a freelance community issue.
Right.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter if they say they're a freelancer or not, they're still professional journalists.
And I just think there are so many people, there are so many freelancers who are probably in the exact same boat or in a much worse boat, that could ask for this and qualify. And how do you say yes to one and not to everyone?
And also, I mean, I don't know what this person's getting paid, but if they are, even without benefits, if they are getting paid for the equivalent of full-time hours, then they should have enough money to pay, what is it, $75 a year?
We don't know anything. We just know this is a separate person than the lawyer situation. We don't know we don't know anything about.
Oh, I'm
their
so, I
income.
thought it was the same person.
No, totally different person. This is a separate email. Yeah, they just wrote, and she sounds like a successful freelancer. It sounds like she's very proud of her work and,
Well, then she should join. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think
Do you
it's,
guys want to listen to me now?
I mean, the dues for SPJ are not outrageous. I mean, look, I'm a retired Army officer, so I'm, outside of my freelance work on a fixed income, and I can afford this. So I mean, but that's not saying everybody can.
yeah,
Hazel?
Hazel, what are your hands up? I actually didn't see your hand. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I probably have more knowledge of what SPJ has done in the past than anybody else on this call, except for maybe Jenny. She might know some of this too. There is no program officially through SPJ to help people pay their dues. What there is instead is, and has been for years, is a kind of informal understanding among some headquarters staff, maybe not currently, but previously, that there were people who would come in and pay people's dues in circumstances like this. And as far as I know, somebody has anonymously already paid this person's dues so that this person will be a member. And somewhere in the email, we know the person's name, so we'll be able to see whether the person joins the freelance community.
Then that's a good thing to, for us
And if
to
they
kind of
do-
keep an eye on.
All right,
And
I
if they
wasn't quite finished,
All
so I just want to finish and then I'll shut up. I have a different view of this. In my 8 years of involvement with the freelance community, I have never seen anybody write and ask for anything like this. And I don't think people are going to write what this person wrote unless they really need it and want it and can't afford it. I know people who won't ask for help. And there's a person in SPJ who's probably worse off than any of us, whose dues I offered to pay in the past and wasn't allowed to because other people already took care of that person. This is why I remain as active in SPJ as I do, because people come in and step forward and do for other people when they need it. And there's Patty Gallagher Newbury used to make it known that she would pay any students dues who needed it. And at the time, Linda Hall was in charge of stuff like that. She was the office manager, and she would just go to Patty if she heard of a student who just couldn't do it. I wouldn't be looking for this to be a really major thing, and I wouldn't advertise it. My thought was that one way we could use the freelance fund to help with in circumstances like this is to offer people, if somebody asks something like this again, to offer that the freelance fund would pick up half and ask the person to donate the money back to the freelance fund at some point in the future. And that would be.
I like that idea.
I would also say, if you all think that we should do it, and if you don't, I respect everybody else's the way you all feel about it, and I agree about the fact that SPJ dues are pretty low, and all that stuff. But I would set aside, say, let's say up to $300 that could be used in this way. And maybe think of it in our minds, it doesn't have to be written down anywhere, as sort of a revolving fund. And when money comes back into this little revolving fund, then it's available for future use. That would be my approach to it.
And I don't know if you guys saw, I know you held your hands up, but if you saw what Jenny just posted in the chat, the membership dues waiver request form when you already are a member.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for sharing that. But this, you have to be a current SPJ member who is sort of can, you know, have fallen on hard times, and they'll waive the fees for 6 months and you can remain a member. That is something that we should send to the person who asked us for this, and that link.
And that's very rare. I've never seen any other organization do that.
Yeah, let's make sure that that goes to the person, because my next question is, does this person come back every year? And I think it's great if they get involved in the freelance community, but if they don't, let's say they're great, they are in desperate need for this, but the freelance fund should be supporting freelancers who do want to be actively involved, like Sergi, right, and Hanan, and I hope this woman gets very involved with us. I'm expecting that. I'm hoping that is the case. She sounds like absolutely someone we want involved just from her reading her letter. So maybe that's, if she gets involved, I don't know if we want to say, you know, say that to her and we pay, no, just let her see, let's see what happens.
I think, well, one thing we could do, and I haven't seen this letter, I think it might be helpful if all of us did, maybe without the person's name attached to it. But I think one thing we could say is the freelance fund is not intended to pay for a membership. There is a hardship, or whatever this one is called, option. There is an option for waiving dues for a certain amount of time to somebody who has already joined the organization. Once you are a member, there is the Harper Fund, the Harper Scholarship for the convention. There is the Freelance Fund. There is the Freelance Fellowship also for the convention. And there may be other resources they can take advantage of, but I do not think we should pay for anyone's actual initial SPJ membership. And you know, I've had financial hard times. I've done this by myself my entire career. And there have been plenty of times where I had to choose between, do I renew this membership and do I pay the phone bill? But I just don't think that's an appropriate precedent to set. And I love the fact that there are people in SPJ who are willing to, as individuals, help colleagues out who fall on hard times. But this particular request, I don't think is something that we should be doing. And maybe we need to vote on it if there's other people.
Thank you, Ruth. Hillary had her hand up. I just want to get to her too, but it might need a vote, Ruth. You're muted. Oh,
yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I posted into the chat the establishing language that established the freelance fund, so that we can just go back to the initial original intention not to be an originalist too much or anything, but still, like, it's helpful to go back to the establishing language. And I actually think that this does fall within the intention with which the freelance fund was established. Because I think that it is like, it's the third bullet point is support, or I can't remember where is it? But it's like including but not limited to these 4 bullet points. But the idea is to assist freelance journalists to engage in job-related activities they otherwise could not pursue. To me, I think that this does fall within that realm. And I think that Stacy, to your point, which I think is a great point, is like, how do we use the freelance fund to provide the money for this one person's membership without providing it for 75 people? Well, you set a dollar limit, like you set a, I'd like to finish though. So you set a dollar limit of like, how much is the set aside that can be tapped? Not to say that, like Hazel suggested, a cap of $300, not to say that we have to spend $300 every year. And I agree that it's not something that would necessarily have to be advertised. But just to sort of like know that there's $300 out of about $15,000 that, like could help either pay for 100% or maybe 50% of the person's membership, to just sort of like bring them on board, give them maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? But just like, give them a little bit of a hand up and some professional outreach and connection when they have enough initiative to look around and ask for it. And with no expectation that it would be something that would be done like, of course, every year, year after year for the same person. But I just wanted to throw that out there as just like a little bit more context with context to consider the question. And that said, I also, one of the things that I really love about the freelance community and the way that we've organized and continue to organize our resources and offer our resources and our programming is that there is a lot available to people that give them like some, professional networking opportunities and resources, even if they're not an official member of SPJ. So I feel like we already do, a fair amount to make resources available to people who might not be able to afford a membership. I also, the idea of setting aside, a cap of maybe $300 to help somebody out with half of their membership dues. Because I also have been, because it's not just a matter of what I earn, it's also a matter of other expenses that are going, out. And I have been the recipient of this type of generosity. And it does make a difference, both like in a direct professional way and also just in the sort of ripple effects of goodwill. So I wanted to throw that out there as well.
I appreciate that, but I still think it's not appropriate to pay for a membership.
I hear you.
Thank you, Hillary. I can be so easily swayed because I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, we need to do it. So I just want to say, I just read the dues waiver request form, and in that they request that by giving the 6-month waiver, that the person volunteers 5 hours of their time. And I think that could be a way that we give money and dignity to somebody, right? I'm gonna get involved. I do this. I've earned this. I've earned this. And maybe that 5 hours is 5 hours at the convention, which we all know we could use, or helping Hazel on one of the databases. Like there's a lot of different ways we could do that and really get them in the mix. That could also get them into our, you know, potential board members. I'm just saying, like, that could get them in, right? So like the way that Sergi joined the board, you know, and Hanan is involved. I think that would, if they could kind of take not just the volunteers that, oh, we're getting this from them, but to show them who we are, what we do. This is the freelance community. This is who funded your membership. This is what we do, and get them excited to be part of us and stay part of us. So maybe that's something when we do pay for a membership, or if we do pay for a membership, we request, as SPJ's waiver form has requested, the 5 hours of volunteer time.
If we're going to do that, it needs to, I think it needs to be an official board decision. And I think it also needs to have some specifics built into it, because otherwise it would be very easy to take advantage of it. And I know nobody here would do that. I know most of our members would not do that. I know plenty of people who would.
Yes, Hillary.
I also just want to point out, so I appreciate that, like, the freelance community board is having this conversation about how that freelance fund should be used. I also just want to point out, and anybody please correct me if I'm wrong on this, my impression, my understanding is that, like, the freelance community board is welcome to provide input to the SPJ Foundation board about how to allocate the freelance fund dollars. But I think that it's not necessarily 100% up to the freelance community board how to allocate those dollars.
That's,
We
thank
need
you
to know
for,
that.
yeah, pointing that
But
out.
we need to know that if it's gonna be called the freelance fund, it seems to me the freelance community board should have the decision
All I'm
making.
saying is that it's not like it's not like our decision alone to make in a vacuum. I think it makes sense, and I'm not even on the board anymore, but I think it makes sense for the freelance community board to have like a clear and cohesive, you know, like, and reasoned decision about what its recommendation is. My guess is that 99% of the time, the SPJ Foundation board would just, you know, like, ask the freelance community board for its suggestion or recommendation. But I think that technically just, and I don't know the legalities and the ins and outs of how that fund is managed. But I think that legally, it's not our decision to make. We're welcome to, or the freelance community board is welcome to provide its opinion about how those funds should be spent. My guess is that in the vast majority of circumstances, that opinion would be honored. But I don't think that it's a decision that I just want to point out that it's not like a decision that exists in this isolated vacuum.
It would help to know. It would help to know how the foundation people see our connection to that fund.
Does everybody here know who's on the freelance fund committee?
No
Hazel.
idea.
Hazel, do you want to just, Solomon, I saw your hand up. Just let Hazel explain who's on the committee and who's involved with the freelance fund, and then I'd love to hear from you, Solomon.
Well, I think it's Susan and me and Stacy on the committee. That is my memory of it. Hillary was on it last year. She asked not to continue this year. And Stacy stepped into her seat. But I want to just make
But
one
But
What?
sorry, I just meant like, I'm talking about the SPJ Foundation
I know.
board itself is the one who, that's what I was saying, is like, they're the ones who have the ultimate say, right? Over how that money gets allocated?
No.
No?
Trust-
Oh,
Don't want to, they really don't want to be bothered.
because that's what it says in the document.
Not doing the
That
decision
they don't want to be bothered?
No, it says the foundation may seek input and assistance from the SPJ freelance community in deciding what programs the freelance fund will support and how the funds are to be dispersed. In the event that the SPJ freelance community ceases to be an active and sanctioned body of the society, the foundation may create an advisory group to provide such input and assistance, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so they can create a board if the freelance community blows up, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
but it puts them as the ultimate decision maker.
They are the ultimate decision maker. I can tell you right now that the people on the foundation board have much bigger and more important things
Right.
to be spending their time and energy on right now. They don't want to be involved in this kind of decision. However, I would certainly ask for advice from people on the foundation board other than the one who lives at my house with me.
Well, I was just going to suggest, because my digital hand was getting tired. So I was just going to suggest that we table this and add it to new business for the next meeting. Because it seems like something we should probably continue discussing when we have more time. And it does
No.
seem like we have a lot of different points of view.
I like the idea of tabling it for some future time. I'm much more interested in seeing us move forward with the mini grant program.
Mhm, okay.
And
And I think just to clarify, because I'm a new member of the committee, it seems if it's me, Susan, and Hazel on the freelance fund committee, is it the three of us who are deciding, like in a separate meeting, what we want the funds to be used for? Or is it all of us? And if it's all of us, what's the committee for? And that's just, I just want to know that. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what my role is, I guess.
the committee is for doing the work to make it happen. And when we set up the fellowship last year, I think the board did vote to make that happen. And I would not dream of moving forward with anything that the board overwhelmingly didn't
Okay.
think that we should.
I see. Okay, so like the smaller things, the things that we know, just yes, the three of us go with, and something like this, where it's a much bigger topic, we bring to the board and we discuss. Is that
Yes,
fair? Okay, got it.
that is my thought about it anyway.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So now we have to get a meeting of the three of us.
I'm gonna
Yes,
put my hand down.
for sure. Solomon, did you have more to say?
No, I just think we should table it because it seems like an important issue and everybody has a lot to think
Great.
about. And it's something that we need to discuss openly anyway, because you have to think about it out loud. I think
Yeah.
right now we're doing the brainstorming out loud thinking part in a short period of time.
Yeah.
We-
It's a good discussion, though. I think we all have, everybody has made a valid point. And I think they're all good points, and I appreciate it. I hate to end on that note. So do we want to talk about something else? Maybe I should have left the lawyer to the end. I don't have anything else on we haven't heard anything on any of the sessions that we pitched, except for the editor freelancer meet and greet. We do know that one is going to happen. We know that's going to be on a Friday. I don't know if everybody knows that, or if everybody was involved in that email thread. So that one is happening, but I don't know about the other three that we proposed, and it'll be a couple of months, probably at least. I think Stephanie is definitely sort of frustrated, not frustrated, but like worried about that. She's like, wait, I've got to get my people, like tell them, that they're, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to tell you, this is going to take a while, So it is a rude awakening. I feel like I'm just like, it'll happen. It's going to be a few months before we hear. So I hope it's not too long, because I can see just especially as a new person setting it up, and she's going to, I don't know. She's just worried about it, I think.
It's not going to be midsummer this year. That was a bad.
You just jinxed us. So let's hope it's not going to be.
I just wanted to clear something up on the programming.
Yes.
So it looks like Stephanie produced and puts out a lot of stuff about the programming, which has been successful because she's pulling people in, apparently. So what exactly are we looking to ask from her? Because when we get an event, she writes the copy for the advertisement, puts it out. And then what else are we asking? What was it specifically we were asking about that copy?
It
Oh, just
has big bold type saying, what is your work worth? And then the business of freelancing in smaller lettering a little further down in the piece. And we were really not planning to focus on what your work is worth as the major point of the session. And both Hazel and I, Hazel can correct me if I misunderstand, but Hazel and I both are a little uncomfortable. We feel like people are being offered something that we might not quite deliver.
I thought, I took it when I saw it that you would talk a little bit about just setting rates.
Yeah, I mean, that we're planning to talk about setting rates,
I
but
think we're
not
covered
in a
then.
lot of detail. And there's a lot more to say in the session. We were both just a little concerned that people might expect a lot more depth on that than we were intending.
Oh,
to-
no, I think you're good. I think you're good. I think the title kind of encompasses most of what you guys are going to do. It looked good. I just was.
No, it looked good. I'm just a little nervous about.
I think, Solomon, are you asking what we want her to do each month of the programming? What are our expectations of Stephanie as the programming director in general, not for this one?
Well, to make it easier for her. I just
Yes,
want her
I
to be
agree.
able-
I agree with you. I
Yeah,
think it does. It's a lot. The programming coordinator does have a big job, and I think it does need to be easier for her.
Yeah.
I think what we had talked about earlier is having the person who is hosting or the people who are hosting the event to come up with the wording. So
Yeah.
that Hazel and Ruth would come up with the wording. Here's a couple things, and this is the main point, or rate the whole thing. Then Stephanie can put in the date, time. She's got it with her graphic. She can get the words in the graphic, and then she can time it. So whenever it goes out, she's got I'm sure she times the promotions, right? So I think that's what we're expecting from her.
I think the missing piece with this one was that she didn't show us that graphic before posting it. And once it was used once, it probably wouldn't make any difference if we changed it. But I think one of the things we should ask her, and this is only fair to her, we don't want her to feel like she's not appreciated, or and we don't want any of our presenters to feel like they're being preempted. So there's both those sides. I think we just need to make sure she realizes that before she posts anything, please check it with whoever is presenting or hosting the session.
Okay, well then I think we should give her a little bit of leeway, because for her, she's doing a really good job in being timely.
Yeah,
And so, she needs to have some space to be able to post stuff so that she can keep it timely. You know what I mean? Like if you start sending every single post to every single person, it's going to slow that timeliness down.
no, I don't mean every single post. I'm just saying she's been using the same one. It's
Right.
not like she's got several different for this particular event. But it would have been helpful if she had checked it with Hazel and me before putting it out there, because then we could have said, well, let's not use that language. Would you mind using just the business of freelancing? That's really all it needed.
Yeah.
I
And
think that Solomon's idea of whoever's doing the presentation sends a little
Yeah.
write-up. I think that will solve this
It
issue.
should, yeah. I mean, if we had been asked for it, we would have sent it.
And
Okay,
yeah, and
so-
I think we're just, I think that's not anyone's, no one's at
No.
fault for any of that. It's
Ships
just the
passing
lack-
in the
we're-
night.
We're honing this as we're moving along, right? We're
Yeah.
getting better at this. So
And-
Solomon and Chris, for the one June 28th, after you guys meet and talk, what do you want this to be, especially this one, because it could be about a lot of different things with photography. What are you going to talk about, and what words, what verbiage do you want to use to sell it? And then that's all you have to send to Stephanie, and she'll do her magic and get it all together. And she might just send it back to you and say, did I miss anything? Just to double check, like Ruth suggested, just, hey, is this right? And then that's it. Then she goes off on her own. I think another thing you're asking, Solomon, is who is in charge of promoting? Is it okay for other people to promote? Should other people be promoting from their own? You're not asking that. Okay, well, that
Well, no,
did come up. That was a question earlier in the week in an
Okay,
email.
so I think if we want her to be the program director, we have to give her a little bit of freedom to be the program director.
I totally agree.
My suggestion is that if we have an event, you write up what you think the event is, and we trust her as a professional to write the copy for the advertisement. This time, we didn't get that, so she was kind of, maybe it was like she was kind of not clear. But when we send that to her and she gets that up, then we should just let her go with it so she can just get the advertisements out and stuff.
Yeah.
And
That's
going
what
forward.
we've done pretty much, Solomon. I think she's done a terrific job of
Yeah.
promoting. it
Yeah.
with-
I'm not talking about criticism, I'm just talking about process. So I'm just saying for process going forward, let's
Yeah.
just have us, whoever's having this program, or whatever program they're doing, write a small write-up of their program. She pulls out whatever she needs to do the advertisement, and instead of going back and forth, because she's a writer, we just have her put it on out there, because you send her something so it has all the keywords that she needs. We trust her judgment on keywords, and she puts it out and gets that advertisement out. So that it gets out in a timely fashion. Her designs are decent, so I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm just trying to keep her, I want to make sure that we lessen her workload, but we still give her the freedom to be able to
Yeah,
do things as the program director, because she may see things that we don't see as people who are designing a program that need to be done to help advertise it.
yeah.
So-
And I think if we can, maybe I don't know, maybe we do need to talk to her before, I guess we need to talk to her before the next meeting, but talk to her about creating a kind of a brand, a graphic that goes
Template.
with all of these. Yeah, so, and she, total freedom with that. Like I just want to see what she comes up with. I think it'll be great. So, and I think that will lessen the load for her too, because she won't have to keep recreating that part of it.
Yeah, well, I looked through them, and it looks like she does have that going already, because it's kind of the same for all of the ones that we've had
Okay.
so far.
So are you asking for a template that specifically says SPJ freelance community and has like a logo? Like, what specifically are you asking?
I
for?
think we need to have the SPJ, I think freelance community needs to be
Prominent.
very visible,
Prominent.
but kind of off to the side, and then you've got the title of what the program is, but we should have some where people can just say, oh, that's the freelance community, this is their event this month, yeah. So
Yeah, because
I just want to make sure that the freelance community is getting, credit for putting this stuff on. It's a lot of work for everybody, so.
yeah, she
Okay.
sends me the flyer and then I put it on Twitter and then she puts the flyer on Facebook.
Yeah,
Right.
awesome, okay.
So we'll let her, like, the branding, I guess, is like the freelance community with the SPJ. Has to be on there somewhere, and you more prominent, I guess, is the request. And then the design of what goes on is going to be up to the program coordinator, and let her just do that.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll
Yeah.
lessen that back and forth workflow, so she can
Yeah.
just do it. But I think that'll be less stressful, because it
I
can be.
I don't think she needs to have us approve the design elements. I'm just
Yeah,
I'm just saying, either she gets some good guidance from the presenters, or even with that, if she wants to, we ask her to clear it with the people presenting, because we could provide good language, but it might still not come out quite right. And most of us, I think, can respond pretty quickly. You know, if I get something from Stephanie saying, is this what you want to use for your event? I will let her know right away. I will respond in not even 24 hours, because I know she's got other things to do and we don't want to lose time.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, if she's gonna be the program coordinator, we gotta give her we gotta trust her a little bit to do some stuff. Like the last time might have been because if she gets something that tells you what the program is, we should trust her to produce something to put online.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. And then
that
just be a-
makes sense. And I suggest we see how it works with this next event. And if there is any concern about whether the event is presented correctly from the presenter's perspective, then we can set a different guideline. How's that?
Yeah, then we'll do an after action review and then we can do some
Yeah.
sustains and improves afterwards. And I think that'll be easier.
That'll work.
Yeah, okay, so let's
I
do
have
that. and then-
Something that we should add to the next agenda,
Okay.
and that's with NPR and other outlets pulling off of Twitter. Obviously, we're not, but should we increase our presence on LinkedIn?
Oh, I think that's a good idea.
But I think we should talk about it, how it needs to be done, what needs to be done. I don't know. I
Do
haven't
it
looked at
online.
As an
But
agenda
just
item.
given the long slide downward that we're on right now with Twitter, and whether it will right itself or not, and given the trajectory of outlets pulling off, I
I
think
think this is, sorry, I think this is a good conversation, but it should be more than just LinkedIn, like looking at Instagram and some other channels. That NPR is like big on Instagram, so.
yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that, I mean, and we could talk about this in the future. I just think kind of LinkedIn is like one thing we can add that might not add that much workload, because if you had Instagram, now you got to do photos and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and it turns into a different animal.
Yeah, there's also Post. Don't forget about Post. It's just.
I think everybody forgot about Post.
Stop.
I
It's
completely-
coming. But I think that with LinkedIn,
Like, I don't know if we can-
we need somebody to do it, right? We need somebody.
Yeah,
who
I don't know
has
if
to go in and do
we
it.
can form a group on there. I don't know. I haven't even looked because I'm not really that active on LinkedIn, but
I
like,
do get on LinkedIn quite often, actually. I find a lot of jobs on there, so I can look into that a little bit. The other thing I was gonna say is when you do a Facebook post, you can choose up there to also post the exact same thing to Twitter and Instagram. So the only thing is that you really guess you should add a picture. I don't know, but especially with
Instagram, you have to.
right, with our programming events, the picture is the right. So maybe that's one small thing when Steph about our events, she can just put this on Instagram too. She doesn't have to do anything but click that, and then it will post to both places. And that's all it will do. So our Instagram account might not be super active, but every month it'll have a new thing. We could also maybe make it more active by also putting the board meetings up on there, putting the board meetings on there to announce those to start, to sort of get a establish ourselves on Instagram.
Yeah, I just think it's something we should add to the next agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I concur.
Okay.
I just wanted to say hooah to Chris Belcher.
What?
Wow, I got a hua today.
And
All right, outstanding.
when is our next meeting?
So
May
we
17th,
decided May
17th?
Yep, May 17th. That's what, the Wednesday, May 17th at 6:30. I've got some bad news.
What?
I think I can correct it. The webinar and the meeting link are completely different. So I have sent the Zoom link from the meeting. I sent the meeting info to all 22 people. Well, not all of them, because Hazel did a few when I was in London. Do you remember if you copied it from the webinar or from the meeting account? Copied the invitation. Do you remember which one?
Know what you're asking, but I can't be certain. But I'll figure it out.
Well,
We
we
could
have,
just send out another email just saying, we may have sent the wrong link. This is the right one.
right, okay, so I will do that. Yeah, so I'm gonna do that. I have to do that. There's no other way to do it. I just have to send out 22 more emails.
Yeah, and let Stephanie know which is well, no, she doesn't need to know the correct
No.
one because people send one thing I think is a very flattering positive aspect of this is the fact that people had to send a message to our Gmail account to request the link, and that 22 people have done that so far. That's a very good sign, because that's an extra step that not everybody is gonna take.
Yeah, and that's what Solomon and I were talking about, that like this extra step might be keeping people from doing this. I don't know if I would do it. Would I send an email, hey, I want to be in your meeting? And we were wondering, how do we make this less work for people, right? But then 22 people
Well,
did this time. So I think that shows that if the topic's right, they will do it.
And people have to do at least the ones, they have to register one way or the other. So this is the equivalent of registering. It's just a little more, they don't just click and boom, they're registered. They
Right.
send a request. And I think the fact that that many people complied with the process is a very good sign.
Yeah, and just so you all know, when I respond to everybody who reaches out, it's a way to develop a little bit of a personal.
Yeah.
They get a personal note from me, right? I just say, oh, I'm glad to hear you'll be joining us. I usually write their first name in there. Glad to hear you'll be joining us, Mark. Here's below is the Zoom info, see you there or something.
Yeah.
So, rather than just copy and paste the link.
Yeah,
So
it's great. I think it's working.
I think I'm going to say that we've decided to make this a webinar. So here's the new link. I'm not going to say we sent the wrong link. That's what I'm going to do.
No, just, you never have to
This
say,
is still being recorded.
They're not going to watch this.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good
Hi,
night.
Hazel, thank you.
Good night. All right. It's almost 9:30. We're nuts for being on here this long. Wait, I got to read some of these. I also got involved in local averages. I was able to work in exchange for a CSA.
You can save
I love it. How do I save it?
Hey,
think
Solomon, send me a
because you
note and we can talk about the multimedia thing.
Because you're recording, it automatically saves it. So when you hit stop, it'll
Got it.
create a
Okay.
chat.
Okay.
file.
Chris, this meeting. Oh, if nobody's on the meeting, I think we can stay on. I was going to say I have this book 7:30 to 9:30, but nobody has a meeting after this, so you probably can stay on with Solomon if you guys want to stay on and talk. Okay. I'm going.
I gotta go. I'm about to fall over for the day. So.
All
Good
right,
night.
see you later.
Thank you.
Hillary, it was so good to see your face. And Solomon,
Yep.
I haven't seen you in a while either. Thank you all, and we will talk to you soon. Well, I'll see most of you next week at the event.
Great to
Okay.
see everybody. Thanks.
Wait, Hillary, don't leave yet. How do I make Solomon or Chris a host?
Okay, so if you go to the click participants down in the bottom.
You
Oh,
could
wait.
stop recording.
Yeah, let me do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, do that first.